Flashing lights tore through the darkness as armed officers stormed the quiet farmland. A barefoot black mother stood frozen, shielding her children while strangers barked threats on her own property. No warrant, no answers, just power, pressed down like a boot on her life. Then, out of nowhere, a figure stepped from the shadows, steady, silent, trained for war, and everything changed. What brought law enforcement to a peaceful farm, and who was the man who stopped them cold? This is the story of a reckoning no one saw coming. Welcome, story lovers. From where are you watching? Comment the name of your sit. Nestled on the outskirts of a small southern town, Denise Carter ran a modest organic farm with her 2 young children. A widowed black mother, she had turned her late husband's dream into a thriving business: fresh produce, hand-raised chickens, and a reputation for honesty. Her days started before sunrise, filled with chores, school drop-offs, and customers who loved her warmth, but often ignored the burden she carried alone. The land was more than livelihood, it was legacy, love, and her children's future. Lately, though, something had shifted. County inspectors began showing up unannounced. A sheriff's cruiser idled outside her gate for hours with no explanation. Still, she pressed on, telling herself it was just bureaucracy. But in her gut, Denise knew better. Something was coming. Something she couldn't explain. And soon, the peace she'd worked so hard to build would be shattered in the most unexpected way. The first real blow came with a letter on official notice claiming Denise's farm violated zoning laws. She'd been operating on that land for 7 years without a problem. Confused, she drove to the county office, only to be met with cold stares and clipped answers. New ordinances, they said. But when she asked for copies, she was told to come back next week. Then came the visits. County officials walked her land with clipboards, pointing, whispering, shaking their heads. One warned her she might lose her farming license over soil mismanagement. Another mentioned health code violations, none of which had ever been cited before. One morning, her delivery van was towed from her driveway without notice. Improper registration, they claimed, though she'd renewed it just 2 months earlier. Her neighbors mostly whitewashed, but said nothing. They still came for eggs and tomatoes, still smiled at her kids, but never asked why the sheriff's truck was now parked outside her gate every morning. Then, one night, she woke to blinding lights and the sound of boots crunching gravel. Law enforcement officers were on her property. No warrants, no warnings, just flashlights, accusations, and veiled threats. Denise held her children close, heart pounding. They said she was under investigation. For what? They wouldn't say. The fear was no longer subtle. It was a shadow creeping into every corner of her life. She made one phone call to her brother, a man most people didn't know existed until now. As the officers pushed through her front gate, barking orders, Denise stood her ground barefoot, trembling, her children clinging to her legs. One reached for his cuffs. Another circled toward the barn, hand resting on his weapon. "Ma'am, step aside or we'll take you in for obstruction." Her voice cracked as she begged for an explanation. But none came. Then, out of the darkness, a voice rang out calm, commanding, "She's not moving. And neither are you." All eyes turned. A tall, broad-shouldered man in combat boots and a military jacket stepped into the light. Her brother Marcasa, retired Special Forces operative, walked with the steady presence of someone trained to face danger head-on. He stopped between the deputies and his sister. "I know my rights. Do you?" The tension snapped like a wire dot. Everything changed in that moment, but the damage was already done. Dear audience, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to give it a like, it really helps. With Marcus recording every move, the officers backed off. No arrests, no explanations, just silence and retreat. Days later, the citations were dropped. No apology, no accountability. Denise kept farming, but the innocence of her work was gone. Now, every sunrise came with caution. Every knock at the door carried weight. She realized this wasn't just about her land, it was about power, control, and how easily Black lives could be disrupted without cause. Marcus stayed for weeks, not just to protect, but to remind her she wasn't alone. Her story spread online, sparking outrage, support, and reflection. But for every Denise, there are hundreds more who face injustice without witnesses. How many lives must be shaken before the system admits it's broken? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories and new videos.